And now for the Greek. So I've done a podcast on these verses, which is more commentary. And so now we want to look at the Greek behind it. And as usual, Luke has not disappointed us with some interesting Greek. We are in the last part of Acts chapter 10. This is the story of Cornelius's conversion. I talk a little bit in the podcast about how I'm not sure if conversion is actually the right kind of language to use here. So an angel appeared to Cornelius. Peter had a vision. Ding dong. They meet. Peter goes with him. Cornelius has people assembled, and we're getting ready to talk. Cornelius is basically about to say, here's what happened. And so go ahead, tell us what the Lord wants you to tell us. So verse 30, and the Cornelius said, this is the aorist of Phemi, not much left of it, but anyway, he said, I've just memorized it. Quote, from the 4 days, from the fourth day. This is an idiom expression that means 4 days ago, basically. 4 days ago. Mekri tautes tes horas, about this hour. Mekri normally means after this hour, but I've seen it translated in this context as about this hour. I was the 9th praying. So this is a periphrastic. I was praying. Form of the verb to be. This is the imperfect of me. And a participle. This is a present participle. Men are passive, but it's prosuchomai, so it's deponent. I was praying the 9th. And I talk a little bit about that in the podcast. In the house of me, and behold, a man stood before me in clothing bright. And I mentioned this expression, estheti lampra, would seem to be a fairly standard expression for Luke in terms of what angels look like. So what store do you shop at if you're an angel? Well, I don't know what store it is. You know, it's Heavenly Macy's, but you get estheti lampra is what you get there. So that's, I think, a clue. This is an angel that appeared to Cornelius. Verse 31, of course, it says that. And he says, Cornelius, vocative, the prayer of you was heard. Aorist passive, right? Theta eta. And the alms of you were remembered. Also aorist passive, theta eta. Son is a third person plural ending. Sorry. Before the God. Verse 32. Send therefore into Joppa. We've seen this before. I talk about that repetition briefly in the podcast. This is an aorist active imperative, second singular. Psi is the key to hidden sigma, so it's lu, lu, son. This is the aorist second person singular. Therefore, send into Joppa and call upon Simon, who is called Peter. And this is another second person singular imperative. Lu, lu, son, lu, psi. This is the middle, aorist middle form. Okay? And I assume it's deponent. I still haven't looked it up. I have a Greek here. Let me look. And I can tell you right away. This is in verse 32. And in verse 32, this is number 10. Well, I guess it's middle. But we've seen this consistently middle. It must be the way that this word functions. It typically is in the middle when it's talking about calling on someone or calling for somebody. Okay, let's keep going. This one is hosted or is lodging in the house of Simon the tanner alongside the sea, and he frolics in the autumn mist in a land called Hanali. Okay, verse 33. Therefore, immediately I sent to you. This is aorist of pempo. Psi is a key to hidden sigma, so we have a hidden sigma alpha. And you did well arriving. Good on you, mate. So Peter has come. And I mentioned in the video that this may be something like an idiom. You were kind enough to come. Okay. Therefore now, all us before God are present. So we're waiting on you. We've been waiting. We've got the popcorn. The popcorn's popped. We want to know to hear all the things that have been commanded to you by the Lord. Oh, I guess Peter had to do it. So maybe don't get a merit badge. You're supposed to do this. He's Lord of all, right? Or he's about to say that. So ta prostetagmena. So what is this from? Before I try to remember, I think it's a prostasso or something like that. I can see here men are passive participles, okay? And I can see that the ending, mena, is right on the stem. There's no connecting vowel, no cartilage. It's arthritic, scrape. There's no, normally this would be amena, da, 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 da. Normally there'd be an omicron here, but there isn't. And so this is perfect Miller passive. I just know it, even though I haven't even looked here. So this epsilon, the te here, it gets a little beside its, tau gets a little beside itself. This is a sign of the perfect, and this is a sign of middle passive, a couple indicators of that. This is a neuter plural alpha, because panta and ta are neuter plural. The article never lies. Okay. The map never lies, and the article doesn't either. So I think it's from prostasso. I think that's the word. Actually, let me look it up, because, again, I have my handy-dandy notebook. Yes, prostasso. Even when I'm uncertain, I'm right. No, not necessarily. Okay, so all the things that have been commanded and still are, a perfect tense, to you by the Lord, agency, hupa with the genitive. Verse 34, and Peter, having opened his mouth, said, this is an aorist participle. Xi is the key to hidden sigma, sigma alpha, aorist participle, nominative masculine singular. Aping an aorist, this is the aorist of Lego, and said, quote, upon the truth, in truth is probably better English, I am perceiving, katalambano, this is also middle, but I myself perceive, maybe it's an intensive middle. The middle is just often easily ignored. Okay, I perceive, in truth I perceive that is not a show of favoritism to face, prosopone, face, a face favorer, God. God is no respecter of persons. God does not show favoritism. Verse 35, but in every nation, the one who fears him and works righteousness, accepted to him is. And so this is a little bit of evidence that God judges us according to the light we have. I like that theology because it helps me. I have a difficult, again, obviously this is just my problem if it's true, but I have theological difficulty with the idea that God lets people go to hell with no chance whatsoever. It seems incongruent with the idea that God is love, and I think the text is very clear that God is love. And so I know by any normal sense of the word love, if I love somebody, I'm going to give them a chance. You know what I mean? Now, I may let them fail. That's not necessarily unloving. I might let them choose to disobey me. That's not necessarily unloving. But to give no one even a chance doesn't seem to be loving. And so again, it's not. I'm not making this up. This is not. That's a softy, snowflake. It's a matter of what the word love means. The normal definition of the word love. This is not some crazy definition of the word love. And so the idea that God would judge people according to the light they have it fits very well with a sense that God's nature is love. And that's what I see in these verses, that those who fear him and do righteousness are acceptable to him, just as Cornelius. Now, as I discovered as I went through the podcast, it does seem like Cornelius knew a little bit about Jesus. He didn't know a lot about Jesus. He didn't have he had not come, in my opinion. In my opinion, Cornelius had not come to that come to Jesus moment where he has to decide whether to believe on Jesus or not. He'd heard about Jesus, but he hadn't really come to that moment of decision. Okay, verse 36. This was very puzzling to me. I kept looking at this. This is an accusative. So I expect it to be the object of a verb. So I'm looking for a verb. Well, there's a verb, but it goes with the relative pronoun. Verb. Well, there's a participle. There's no verb. Where's the verb? I need a verb to know what the object is. So, by itself, it reads something like, the word that he sent to the sons of Israel, and I assume that he is God, the word that he sent to the sons of Israel, preaching the good news of peace through Jesus Christ. There's no verb here. This one is of all Lord. That's a maybe a parenthetical comment about Jesus. Okay, but I need a verb. I was very puzzled by this, but I think verse 37 gives us the verb. What are you doing, Luke? Didn't you know that English speakers were going to try to read this later on? So I think what we need to insert before ton logon here is, y'all know the word that God sent to the sons of Israel, preaching peace through Jesus Christ. So Peter seems to imply that Cornelius knows about Jesus. Okay, so that's the first one. Jesus is Lord of all. Now that might have been somewhat new information. Verse 37. Y'all know the word that has come according to all of Judea, beginning from Galilee, with the baptism that John preached. Okay, so apparently Cornelius does know a little bit about Jesus. This is the present in meaning but perfect in form of horao, or of oida. Oida means to know. It's related in the history of the word. Y'all know the word. It's a different word for word, but it seems to be used synonymously. So it looks here like Luke is using logos and rhema in the same way here. The word that had come to be, this is the perfect of ginomai, according to all of Judea, having begun, so Xi is the key to hidden sigma alpha, so that's aorist. This is the middle. Men are passive or middle. The middle of archomai means to begin. It's a strange word. Archo means rule in the active voice and begin in the middle. Having begun from Galilee with the baptism which John preached, so relative clause, this is Xi is the key to hidden sigma, so sigma epsilon is a aorist third person singular, which John preached, verse 38. You know Jesus, the one from Nazareth. Again, so this seems to be doing a lot of work in these three verses, but only mentioned once in the middle. How, host often means as, but I think here it means how. How God anointed him with Spirit holy and power. Okay, this fits with my sense that Jesus played it by the human rules when he was on earth, including doing the powers he did through the Holy Spirit. Okay, this is the aorist. It's a sigma epsilon. That's a common aorist we've seen over and over again. You might just stop and fry it on your brain. Have an intense Greek moment and let the son of Greek fry that aorist form. When you see sigma epsilon nu or just sigma epsilon at the end of a verb, it's probably aorist active indicative third singular. Okay, whom, Jesus, whom went through doing good things and healing all the ones being tormented by the devil. By the devil, hupa with the genitive, that's agency. That's an awfully long word. It is a present, but it's present tense. Kata dunos duo, the ones being tempted. I think it's passive, present passive participle. Accusative masculine plural is the ending. From kata dunos duo, I believe it is. Yes, that's right. See, I'm always right when I guess. No, I'm not guessing. They're educated guesses. That God was with him, a noun clause. Okay, hoti can mean that, in which case it introduces a noun clause, or it can mean because, in which cases it introduces a causal clause. Verse 39, and we are witnesses of all the things which he did. Aorist, same ending, right? You got it down now. You had that intense Greek moment. Both in the country of Judea and Jerusalem. Okay. Whom also they killed, having hanged him upon a tree. We've seen these words before, too, in the sermons of Acts. This is anaireo, and this is the aorist form of it. The il is second aorist form. And then aorist participle, aorist from the sigma alpha. My aunt is active participle, which is having hung upon a tree. Well, okay. Luke's, this is some of the hardest Greek of the New Testament. So you should congratulate yourself if you're kind of getting it. And this is our second to last podcast in chapter 10 for this week in Greek. Have a great day.